Dennis Allen talks Justin Simmons, injuries, and preparation for preseason game Saturday night in Arizona. Plus, usual practice reports for day 12. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So DA had a lot of stuff really, or not a lot of stuff, but some other stuff to talk about in the press conference or the post practice press conference. But the biggest thing was Justin Simmons, basically. So kind of chopped up a couple of the questions, and we'll listen to what he has to say.
Well, look, I mean, this is a guy that's been a good player in our league for a long time. He's a player that's shown an interest in us. We've got some connections with him in terms of guys on our staff that have worked with him, guys that have played with him.
And as we talked about in video earlier today, defense coordinator Joe Woods and Marcus Robinson, the defense back coach, both were in Denver with Justin Simmons. And I think DA talks about it a little later, but they both kind of have a repertoire with Justin Simmons, and seems to have been kind of involved in the talks that have been ongoing for a little while.
And so, look, I think that it's exactly what it is. It's a visit. He's coming in, and we'll talk about, how we would see him. What type of vision that we would have for him, and then, if what we're looking for and what he's looking for, if those things match up, then we'll see if it goes further than that.
Dennis, is that more about him than what you've seen at the safety position in camp?
Yeah, look, I mean, as always, you're always looking for, areas that you think you can improve your football team. I don't think that's necessarily a position that I'm saying, man, we got to go out and actively find somebody. I think it's more of a situation where there's a really good player that's on the street, and this is a player that there's been some communication with, with the player or his agency, and so I think we're at a point now where I think both sides feel comfortable with him coming in and visiting, and we'll see where it goes from there.
It's a very interesting little wraparound of questions there, because he's kind of admitting, mentioning that the two coaches that have prior experience with Justin Simmons, and then kind of alluding to, hey, we've been talking to him for a while, but we weren't quite in the same place. He was here, we were there, just not real close or whatever, and just it's a visit. It's not a workout or anything. I don't even know if they're doing a physical on him actually. But he mentions later, he goes, no, just a visit, not any type of formal workout. And this just goes back to early on in the free agency process. Again, I'm not saying the word collusion. However, that seemed to be out there that these safeties wanting, and I think Simmons' asking price was like 18, 19 million a year to play safety, that these free agents that were out there, they were going to sit out there. The teams weren't interested in signing and paying them that much money to come in and play safety, and they sat for a while. Some took discounts and signed earlier, but just in the last week or so, the top guys, and Simmons is the last one, but Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Adrian Amos, they're all in camp somewhere now. So I don't know the details in their contract, but I'm willing to bet it's probably damn sight lower than what they were asking for back in March. I think when talking about getting a little closer, I think money is a big part of the issue here. It's a huge part. And when he's talking about the roster of existing safeties, using his own words all through June at the OTAs and mini camps into training camp, he wants somebody to catch his eye. They got to turn some heads. They got to make him notice them. But at the same time, unless asked, he really hasn't, brought up a lot about the safety play. And even then, it's not been a whole lot. And Roderick Teamer is kind of the only one that's had mention on multiple days. Let's put it that way with DA. So I think part of that is he's trying to undersell. It's not like a position in need, but if we can get a better player, and just part of this, like, feel like they're almost negotiating right now. That they've been negotiating since the spring. They were one of the interested teams, and I know some other teams probably were interested also. But this is just like an ongoing back and forth where I think his asking price is going to have to come way down for the Saints to truly be interested in. And I don't know where they started at because they were able to free up some money. I think they're 16 million, maybe 14 million, somewhere under the cap right now. Some type of, you want 18, we'll give you 9. Come in kind of this year with incentives. That's 9 with incentives. Come in this year and improve it. And then we'll have something ready to go for 2025. I think that's what you're looking at here. Is he willing to come down that low, or would we have to go up a chunk more? I don't know, but I think that's at the point this is at, because I just don't know if there's that many teams still looking for high price safeties. And I think there's also a point where Simmons in his camp realizes he can't wait too long.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Probably sometime in the spring there was a little bit of back and forth. We and he were not, probably, on the same page in terms of what we were willing to do or what he's looking for. I think it's just getting closer to the season. I think we're probably a little closer on both sides, and so I think that's why you bring the player in. You have a chance to sit down and visit with him and see if things work out. So that's really what it is.
It sounds like he's saying, "Well, we're gonna see if he's coming down in price because we're not willing, along with the rest of the NFL who was looking for safety. He's not really interested in going up there. Let's see if he's willing to come down here and talk." Only thing is, I hope the Saints hold firm on this, because I mean, safety is been the one that I've been. You feel like we should be able, and you want to say, yes, one of those guys sitting on the roster, we can figure it out. We'll be fine at safety. We don't need to do this. At the same time, DA said he's a very good football player and he's available. His asking price, especially at his age, was way too high. But if it's reasonable and the Saints can afford it, I think it's a move you got to make. And I think they would be ready to make it. But the Saints have to hold firm on this. They can't get into a situation where they start creeping up closer to what he wants.
You referenced it a couple times, but when you're adding a veteran player at this stage, it has to be helpful to know that Marcus and Joe have that connection. Does that make it easier in terms of adding a new person to the locker room?
Yeah, look, you never know what you're getting until they actually get here, and so when you have somebody that's been in the meeting room with a player, whether it be a player or a coach, but somebody that's been in the meeting room, been on the practice field, been through the games, to where you have intimate knowledge of how the player responds in different situations. What type of teammate is he? Is he going to fit into the culture that we have here? Like, all those different things are things that you don't really know unless you have, that knowledge from, being in the building. And so, I think having those guys know the player and having worked with him before would make a transition easier.
really, I think that's the deal right now. I think they're kind of hopefully maybe relying on the previous relationship with Woods and Robinson to maybe get this into some type of reasonable situation because you're going into preseason game 1 in a couple of days. Training camp is about halfway over, more or less, around the league. Um, I don't think Simmons wants to wait too much longer. So maybe the familiarness with the two coaches and Simmons can work out some agreeable, sort of like he's saying, where we can meet, we can work out, we can get him in because he's going to make this team better. That's the thing that you have to kind of wrap your head around, at least right now, because it's either the veteran who may only have a couple years left out of him, but if you can bridge to one of these young guys, but I feel like we wouldn't be having this conversation about Justin Simmons if one of those younger guys just went ahead and grabbed the job, turned their heads, popped their eyes open, and they went, "No, we're good. We don't need to dip into the Justin Simmons pool." But the fact they're still flirting with him tells me, despite what DA said, he just not 100% sold that the second safety is currently in the building. So not only did DA talk about Justin Simmons, although it seemed like a large portion of the conversation the media wanted to have with him. There is an upcoming preseason game coming in a couple of days. So we actually talked a little bit, or they actually asked him a little bit about practice. He did say that in his opening statement was everything looked a little slow. He attributed that maybe just the day off. They got a little issue getting started this morning. He said, but by the end of practice, they were back in the rhythm. Everything was looking good and more acceptable as opposed to the way practice started. He said there's one more install left for tomorrow. They're going to be doing goal line work tomorrow. The install today, they worked a lot of short yardage, and when they're done with tomorrow, everything will be installed for the season. So pretty much when they do their walkthrough tomorrow, he said, by the time we do the walkthrough tomorrow, everything season wide has been installed in the offense. And then you're talking more about adding the game planning and doing stuff like that as the season progressed. But the basic install for offense, defense, everything will be finished tomorrow. So I don't know how much we're going to see or who we're going to see because he talked about that also come Saturday. But they're on schedule at least going, okay, we got to tow a game up Saturday night. We'll have everything in by the walkthrough tomorrow afternoon. He said they still have like some details, like communication was one of the things he kind of brought up. Is still going to have to hammer out by Saturday, make sure, the booth can talk to the coaches can talk to the quarterback, etc. Those kind of things, he said. So there's still a lot of prep work when it comes to stuff like that. But the team itself, the only thing really after that second install is, and they asked him about who's going to play and all, and he said, I haven't spoke to the team yet. But once I do, we'll have all that decided. He said, but I'm not going to start throwing that out here until I sit down with the team and talking about who's going to play, how we're going to get playing time, what we're looking at, sort of that whole thing. So I'm assuming that's also going to be part of tomorrow's practice and meetings. But pretty much by tomorrow afternoon, they'll be wrapping up the prep for game Saturday night against Arizona. So I think it's kind of exciting. Let's see what we have. I don't know how much they'll show, but what we have on offense, see what it looks like. Hopefully it looks good enough that we're not going to be sweating about what's going on the offensive side. And I think I speak for everybody when we say, especially the offensive line. The other thing he did talk a little bit was about injuries again. And, it's kind of along the same lines. I'm so tired of talking about this. And who left today? Somebody seems to leave practice every day. Blanking right. Oh, Mason Tipton, which every time we've mentioned him, it's been good things, but now looks like a hamstring. So Tipton left practice early, didn't return. But DA, they asked him about, like these guys, and they're not coming back. Some are seen working on the side or working with trainers on the side, or at least observing practice and not really doing drills or anything, but I guess getting a little rehab done on the side while practice is going on. But he reiterated, he said, this is they're taking a very I think, kind of overly cautious, but very precautionary approach to getting guys back on the field. He said most of this is soft tissue injury, um, or issues. I didn't necessarily say an injury. And he said they're just taking a very precautionary, almost conservative approach to this because they don't want this to linger in the season. They normally take time to heal, so they want 100% before we get him back out there. We don't want reoccurring problems. I get that, I really do. I understand, but just the sheer number of them is just getting mind-boggling. It's like every practice you lose at least one person. Now, it sounds like you could have gotten most of them back if this was a season, a lot like talking about DeMario the other day. Um, he could have went, for practice and game prep and all. But right now, guess what they're saying is we don't want to do that now. If we have to do it in the season, we will. But right now, no. Let's go ahead and make sure they're 100%. They're full good to go if they make the roster for week one. That's the other part of this. If they make the roster, because I think there's guys' chances are getting severely hurt. Some we haven't seen Kendre Miller since halfway through practice one. I think this is going to start adding up and be a problem for some players before it's all said and done. But right now, it seems to be a minimal issue, or not quite the major serious issue. I feel like it is, but in the team's eyes, going no, it's still all precautionary stuff. So I'm not even doing an injury report. Uh, I'm not. Just there's a lot of names on it. Hardly any of them came back. We may have gotten somebody back today. At this point, I'm like, whatever. Um, but talking about what went on in practice today, a lot of what I read, and it still hadn't seen much of the highlights out of it yet, but it sounded like kind of an even, almost back and forth day. Um, Sometimes the offense seemed to have a little thing going. Sometimes the defense played really well and shut them down, depending on kind of what they were doing, one-on-ones or team drills or whatever. But Carr, saw the mention, he was 5 of 5 and dropped a plus 30 yarder into Cedric Wilson downfield. Seems to be he's and that was in team drills. Seems to be just really kind of playing well, fitting at least comfortably so far. We'll see what happens when there's a live pass rush coming at our offensive line in these situations. See what happens. So far, he seems to be getting everything down. A.T. Perry was mentioned as possibly having his best day of practice because he and Jake Haener hooked up on 2 big plays. One was a deep downfield. I believe I saw it was also a plus 30 completion in team drills. And then when they were doing red zone drills, he caught a TD pass from Jake Haener, which is good that we're finally getting some mentions from A.T. Perry, considering Dennis Allen was literally told us a few practices ago, I'm expecting more. He's got to do more. He's got to work on everything. I'm expecting a bigger jump. Hopefully this is the start of it because I have a lot of faith in A.T. Perry, but I really want it to show up because I think the guy can play. So I'm excited to get him going so he can be part of this. Short yardage situations. Apparently the linebackers did very well, specifically Willie Gay and Anfernee Orji, who shined in place of Davis and Werner, who were not in practice in the team drill portion, at least anyway, when they were working on goal line, or short yardage rather. But said both these guys played really well, and I'm seriously starting to think, man, linebacker room may be approaching the cornerback room on who's the top dogs on the defense, because I'm getting really excited about both of them, the depth and the talent that they have in them. And Orji wasn't a guy that I saw on the radar, but apparently he's figured it out and he's balling out. So talking a little special teams too today, because it was noticed that the punt returners today were Cedric Wilson and Kool-Aid McKinstry was getting work there, and I think they had kind of talked about that when they drafted him and OTAs and all that he could see some returns back there. So he got his work in there. But really the talk was about the kickers, because DA had said he wants consistency from those two kickers, wants to see it. Today, Groupie, they both got a lot of work in. Groupie was 5 of 6, controversial 5 of 6, because some members of the media said the last one was close and they think it might have actually been good. I guess there was no instant replay. It couldn't go to the booth there in practice. And Smythe was 6 of 7. DA did mention in his post-practice talk, the kickers came up a little bit and talking about Smythe, and he said, being asked from Ireland, he's never actually played an American football game in an American football stadium. He's interested to see how he's going to respond and to the stadium, to the pressure, doing it first time and all. And he said he really hopes he can get some starting this Saturday, get him some kicks against Arizona and further in the preseason. So I think this is because he said, guys got talent, but we need to see it translate, need to see how it's going to work out, how he responds. So I think we definitely have a full-blown kicker battle that's probably going to carry all the way through preseason, at least right now. So definitely interested to see that. And playing in Arizona in the desert air, I want to see how far this kid can bang one. I really do. So that's all we got for today. Day 12's in the books. I don't anticipate a lot going on tomorrow. They, like I said, one install, they're going to have a practice and a walkthrough and all. And I'm assuming they're traveling Friday. So we'll keep you posted on what's going on. We will have some type of post game, not necessarily post game Saturday, but we will have a review about what went on, and I'll probably looking on that on about Sunday or Monday. But hopefully starting next week, we will go begin the post game show with the Frisco preseason game, because I think everything gets for real next week. We have the joint practices with Frisco during the week. We're going to play them in preseason game 2 the following week, or next weekend. And then I think that's when we break camp and we come back home. So I think next week's the big week where, okay, all the stuff that we've been talking about, is it going to get put together, or are we going to see it? And Frisco kind of knows what we're doing because they've been doing it. They invented some of this stuff, actually, and they have a pretty good defense. So it should be a test. And I think kind of since they went to the 3-game preseason, game 2 kind of seems to be the dress rehearsal. So it's kind of, I think, is going to be a good week coming up, a good measuring stick of where we are and where we need to go. So comments below. Hey, give me your best guess. What's going to happen Saturday? What's going to happen the rest of the preseason? But specifically, I'm excited that we're playing a game and we're kicking off on Saturday, but I'm really excited about what's going to happen next week in that Frisco, basically the joint practice / Frisco preseason game that will either make me feel good about my optimism or possibly start a spiral of pessimism. I don't really know how it goes, but I'm going to try to be positive. Hope you can too, but we'll see how it turns out. So till next time, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?